Hmm.
Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome back to our third and final part of our conversation with Rotten Tomatoes versus DC. Is Rotten Tomatoes nice? Are they not nice? So far, they've not been very nice.
Not
I
really.
guess the world will never know. um, we just finished up our conversation on Zack Snyder's Justice League, which my brother so beautifully, spilled out and detailed because he's the only one that's seen it. So thank you very much.
Why thank you.
And without further ado, we are going to move on to our last final five movies of this list. So, taking the fifth spot on the list, we have Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. This movie came out in 2020. It is actually the first certified fresh movie on the list with a critic score of 79% and an audience score of 78%. So some of the starring actors are Margot Robbie, Rosie Perez, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and it was directed by Kathy Yan. From what I could remember, basically the story was taking place like after Harley Quinn and the Joker broke up, and Harley Quinn was basically trying to find herself, and along the way she meets like some other strong female characters, and they kind of form this like little quasi team to defeat like a common enemy, and it's just full of like comedy and laughter and some pretty decent action scenes here and there. And I think Margot Robbie and like her supporting cast are basically like what make the movie, to be honest, just because they're all like really beloved and they do such a good job. And it was definitely enjoyable to watch. I remember working at the movie still when this came out, and I'm pretty sure we both saw it, and it was pretty enjoyable. I don't know if I would sit and watch it again, but if it was just like a one and done movie for me, it was a solid movie. I didn't really find too much wrong with it. Um, these scores are pretty accurate, both critically and audience wise. And like I said, I think Margot Robbie, just like Henry Cavill, I mean, she basically makes the role of Harley Quinn come alive. If anybody else was Harley Quinn besides her, it would like be a total shift in like just the atmosphere and just stuff. Um, but no, it was definitely really cool. It was cool to see like her kind of get her own movie, just because Harley Quinn is a well beloved character in the DC universe. So I was surprised when she got her own movie. I mean, of course, it did introduce some other female characters from the DC universe, but it mainly focused on her, and it was like I said, it was pretty good. So yeah.
I also like how in this film that again this is after she broke up with the Joker, so it's kind of just focusing on Harley, not like that thing that people are used to of just Harley being next to the Joker, which is something I enjoyed. Also, you forgot it has Owen McGregor as the villain in this.
It does. I totally did forget
I
about
think
him.
he's called like the Black Mask or something. All I know is he has a mask. I thought he was pretty well as a villain. It was nice to see him in this. Also, we see other like versions of characters such as Black Canary and Huntress in Harley's little squad. Again, I think it's quite humorous at certain points. I think some of the shots are really great. I think again Margot Robbie kills it as Harley in this, and I feel like it's just a fun film. I feel like it's I'm in. It's interesting that they made this film, but it's it's a welcome surprise, and it's interesting that literally the audience score is only 1% less than the critic score. um I agree with both. Again, this is a good film. It's definitely rewatchable in my opinion. I enjoy watching it, and again, it definitely has a lot of it has a lot of good qualities to it. um But other than that, oh, also this came out like kind of right before COVID as well. I don't remember the exact month, but it did come out in
Yeah, I
2020.
was trying to figure out if it came out like during COVID or before. I think it came out
No,
before
because
COVID.
from what
'Cause
I
weren't
remember,
weren't
this
we
was
weren't we
actually
trying to go see it? Like, and then when we got to the movies, they were like, "Oh yeah, we're like not showing any more movies and stuff like that."
well, we both still worked in the movies at this time, and I remember this being one of the last movies we actually showed, like before
Yeah.
we shut down. So probably yeah, because I think we were gonna see it, but I'm pretty sure we saw it in theaters, and
We
I feel
did.
like it
We
was like
saw
the
it, and then
last movie
I
we
think,
saw.
yeah, we saw it, and then I think we were going back to see it just because we were bored. And when we went up there, I remember like Diana was working box or greeter, and she was like, "Oh yeah, we're not showing any more movies because COVID and everything." And that's how we kind of found out that like the movies were being like quasi shut down, until we got like the
Yeah.
official emails.
But I mean, other than that, again, it definitely is an enjoyable film, and I feel like it's worth the watch just because it's fun. Um, Moving on to our number 4 spot, we see a significant difference in like these last 3 films going from, 60s and 70s to the top 3, I mean, sorry, top 4 consisting of all 90 or above. We have the first Shazam, which came out in 2019, starring Zachary Levi, Mark Strong, Asher Angel, and more. This has a 90% certified fresh Rotten Tomato with an 82% audience score. Um, Shazam is a great film. It is a lot of fun. I feel like it brings a lot of life to what the DC should be. I think it, introduces this character great. I think the what's it called? The choices for the actors and actresses are also pretty spot on. I do like how they also portray Shazam as a kid in this, forgetting that he is a kid even when he has to take on these big responsibilities. And I don't think it's too big. I think it knows what it is. And even though the villain isn't the best in the world, I do like that it has what is it? It's like the seven deadly sins, with the villain, like gluttony and like all those
To
like,
be completely
different things.
honest, like even though I love this film, I cannot remember the villain for the life of me. I have no
I
idea who
don't remember
it was.
him either. All I know is he had like
It's like
again,
you,
he
you
had
can
like
you
the
can you can
sins
kind of tell that
tattoo.
like the villain was maybe the only thing that was like lacklusting about the film is that like he was not a very rememberable villain, to be honest. I mean, the fight scenes were cool, but I just don't remember really a
I
single
feel like
thing about
for
him.
it being, Shazam being a kid and having to fight like a villain, giving him somebody like this, like was, it was all right. But again, that is the lackluster part of the film. Other than that, um, excuse me, it's a good film, and it definitely is one of DC's best. And I know a lot of people regard it in their tops, in their couple of top spots for DC rankings. But overall, I'm not one of the biggest fans of this film, but I do enjoy this film, and it is the change and a fresh film for DC, especially at the time that it was in, because 2019 was a really good year for movies. Um, but overall, I agree with Rotten Tomatoes. I think it does deserve to be certified fresh, and the audience score seems to be pretty spot on in terms of that. Overall, definitely a great film, and it is a shame that it seemed to go down in the second one. But maybe we'll see more. I don't know what James Gunn has planned in the future. But overall, a solid introduction to the character, and I think all the portrayals in this film are pretty great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have to agree with you. It was definitely a fun film to watch. And it's a shame that the sequel, did so poorly because obviously this movie was so highly rated and beloved by the audience. But then again, the second movie was beloved, by the audience, but just the script flipped with the critics. I mean, obviously the critics love this one and then they hated the other one, but the audience score stayed pretty much the same for like, both movies, I think. So I mean, overall positive, overall the audience had like a more positive outlook on Shazam versus the critics. Like I said, I think the whole idea of like Shazam still being a kid is pretty cool because like you see like this kid kind of grow up and have these adult responsibilities. Um, and it's like the perfect textbook definition of like growing up too fast, because literally by saying one word, he goes from like a small kid to a full grown ass man. uh,
Yeah,
and obviously when he's in his form, as Shazam, people are going to treat him differently and everything just because, again, he goes from a kid to an adult. But overall, I think the supporting cast is also what made this movie enjoyable. I think like all of his like siblings and his step parents. I mean, obviously we had Jerry from The Walking Dead as his father, and
yeah.
overall it was a good film. It was nice. Yeah, I mean, it was nice. Especially like that little post credit or like towards the end of the movie where like, he goes to sit down with his like brother at school. He's like, "Oh, hey, so and so." It's like, how you doing? And then like all of a sudden he's like,
Yeah.
"Brought my pal Superman,"
Yeah, like
which
those
was
are parts I enjoy of it.
pretty cool. But no, I mean, like I said, it was a good film. It was a shame that the sequel did not live up to par. Because if it did, then it would have been probably like some of the best movies that DC's put out. But that's always the risk that you take with sequels. They're not always going to be the best, as the original movie. But yeah, beloved character. I mean, I can definitely get behind a character like Shazam. He has a pretty cool backstory and everything. Um, so yeah, so I think that's pretty good. Moving up to our final top three. At the third place spot, we have the Suicide Squad, which came out in 2021. It is certified fresh at a 90%, and it has an audience score of 82%. Starring it is Margot Robbie, Idris Elba, John Cena. So unlike the first one, we had besides like Margot Robbie and the Australian Boomerang guy, we had a whole new cast of characters, which was pretty cool to see. I mean, I think Idris Elba did a great job. John Cena as Peacemaker. Obviously, he became a beloved character and a fan favorite because he even had his own HBO series about him. After this film released. Obviously, it was directed by James Gunn, and overall, it was just a better version of Suicide Squad, and I think it was what Suicide Squad was initially meant to be. Like, I mean, imagine they released this when Suicide Squad first came out instead of what we got. Um, it definitely would have helped DC, at least in the category of movies, because I mean, they would have easily put out a banger at the same time that like Marvel was so popular. Because I mean, I think when Suicide Squad came out in 2016, um, that was kind of like the peak of Marvel. Like Marvel was putting out like those classic movies and everything, and it was just hard for DC to compete. While Marvel was doing their whole like Avengers timeline and stuff. So, but overall, the story is pretty fun. Kind of the same premise as the first one, just kind of like a different setting and everything. That first opening sequence where like you think it's a Suicide Squad, and then like they pretty much all die was like a shock. Because I was just like, what the hell just happened? And then to find out that like they were like Suicide Squad, like Team A or whatever, and like the one that we meet is like the second team, was pretty interesting. And like I said, we had a few recurring characters come back, like the soldier from the first one, Margot Robbie, the Australian Boomerang guy, and like I said, I think Idris Elba was pretty good. Was his name Deathstroke? Was it Deathstroke or what was it?
Bloodsport.
Bloodsport? I don't know why
Yeah.
I thought of Deathstroke. It's because you said it earlier, so I had
Yeah.
it in my mind. Yeah, so we have him coming in as that character. And overall, it had like the perfect amount of action, comedy, and just overall a lot of fun. A lot of colorful sequences. Especially when they fight the giant starfish at the very end. Uh, and then like that whole sequence where like they go to rescue Margot Robbie, but like she's kind of rescuing herself, and like she
Yeah.
goes through that whole hallway sequence, and it's all like flowers and sunshine and rainbows, and like she's just twirling around and killing people. um, so overall, it was a pretty good movie, and it's definitely what Suicide Squad should have been in the first place. So
Um, I absolutely love this film. I think it belongs in the top three of any DC list, in my opinion. I think it
And
belongs
I'm
in.
sorry to cut you off, but correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't this the last film that me and you saw together before I came down to Florida?
Yeah, this was the last showing we went to. I remember because it was August.
The
It was
last
like the
showing.
end of the summer. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It was what's it called? Also, I love all the posters that they put out for this. But again, this is exactly what you want to see out of a movie with a title like this. Characters that you get introduced to that are just so much fun, and obviously half of them end up freaking dying, and you'll never see them again in another film. But it is so enjoyable. Again, casting Sylvester Stallone as King Shark, one of the best choices they made.
Yes, I forgot about him. He was
Rick
such a
Flag in
fun
this
character.
this one significantly more likable. Margot Robbie great as always. Even like those side characters like Weasel or TDK or Michael Rooker's character. Again, Ratcatcher 2 like stole the show at points. What's it called? Polka Dot Man. I mean, who would have thought he would have been? Who would have
Uh,
thought these characters would be so enjoyable? Even
yeah.
Starro. Like I felt bad for Starro at the end, especially when he said you should have just left me to like, or I enjoyed floating, looking at the stars. Like it's depressing, but I think it's such a good film, and this is in my like top comic book movies of all time, in my opinion at least. It's so rewatchable. It's so much fun. The comedy is great. The action is great. Um, the it's just great. Again, I feel like this is James Gunn is a perfectionist when it comes to superhero films. I mean, what he's put out four, and all four of them have been bangers. So I mean, this man taking over the DC universe is just gonna, I feel like, blow everything out of the water. Um, but again, I feel like there's also the music choices are fantastic, but that should come as no surprise. And I really love what they did with again, Harley Quinn in this film as well. A lot different than the first Suicide Squad, what we saw. Um, and again, I love Peacemaker as well, and all these other characters that introduced that interacted with each other. So again, overall, great film, and it definitely deserves to be in the top three. If not, in my opinion, probably the top two in this list. Um, but I mean, overall, great. Moving on to the top two now, we're coming in our second spot with another certified fresh score, with a 93% certified fresh Rotten Tomatoes, with an 83% audience score. We have the first Wonder Woman that came out in 2017, starring the likes of Gal Gadot, Chris Pine, Connie Nelson, and it was directed by Patty Jenkins. Um, this film is amazing. It is, again, Patty Jenkins is a phenomenal director in this film. Um, I love the look of it. I love the whole excuse me. I love the whole World War One aspect of it. I love her story, coming from what she knew all her life to this so-called new world, but still having that pure soul. Um, you could argue that the villain maybe isn't all there, but he's definitely good for what he is. Um, all the side characters are so much fun. Chris Pine is great in this. It's so enjoyable to see him and Gal Gadot act alongside of each other. And I feel like, it'd be very hard to hate on this movie because I feel like there's a lot of good things about it. Like, it's not a very humorous movie, but when there's humor there, it's there. It's got a lot of serious tones, and I like how they don't overplay that for comedy. I like how they keep it like that. And again, I feel like this was a perfect casting for Wonder Woman. And the score, the theme, all that is great for having such a dark tone. It still looks phenomenal. It gives you so much hope at times, but it also rips away a bunch of things. It shows the true horrors of war, which I like that they did in the comic book movie. And it's realistic in a lot of senses, and I think just everything plays out so well together. Personally, this is again one of my favorite DC films. Again, in my top comic book films, and I definitely think our next episode should be that. If it's not Guardians, it should be top 10 or whatever of our personal favorite comic book movies of all time. Because this is definitely probably in there. But overall, again, I absolutely love this film. It's deserving of a top spot in any DC comic book list or even any superhero list. It's a shame we got to step down in the second one, but I'm glad we can still enjoy this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. Wonder Woman is, probably one of my favorite DC movies. It's always enjoyable to watch. Of course, as a historian, I always love seeing the First World War aspect. I think they really did a really good job of like staying as like historically accurate as possible. Um, and like you said, they show the true like horrors of war and like what happens behind the scenes. I thought Chris Pine and his supporting cast were excellent. Especially when he crash lands on like the Amazonian island and like they tie him up with like the lasso of truth. and like he's trying to resist it, and he's like, "What the hell is happening to me?"
Yeah,
Uh,
he's great.
so that was pretty funny, and her whole interaction when she first meets him, was she was almost like head over heels for him and everything. But no, I mean all the action sequences were really great. I could agree with what you said about like the villain being a little lackluster. I mean, he doesn't really kind of make his like true appearance until like the very finale of the film. And we
Yeah,
find that he's a deity like associated with Greek mythology. So he has like supernatural powers. And he was kind of pulling the strings like behind. Oh, I think he was Ares. I think it was Ares, the god of war. Actually, I think it was like was the villain, and
it
he
was a
was
guy that
trying.
was in Harry Potter. I don't remember his name
Yeah,
though.
but I think the villain was actually Ares, like the Greek god of war, and
Yeah,
trying to sow chaos and war throughout the world.
and that
Um,
was the whole. Yeah,
which is the reason why the First World War happened. Because in DC version, so when they find that out, they find out that it's actually him and everything, and that whole fight sequence was like first of all, it was beautiful, and then second of all, it was like badass. I got a lot of honestly, now that I kind of look back at it, I get a lot of Captain America vibes, the first Avenger. I feel like the stories are somewhat similar. Just the roles are reversed. I mean, obviously you have this like superhuman female and like this just regular male character, and obviously in Captain America you have the reversal. I think it ends sort of the same. I mean, it ends with both like Steve Rogers and Pine's character basically sacrificing themselves for the greater good. Obviously, we see Captain America lives, and you know, uh, unfortunately, Steve does die, but then he's brought back in Wonder Woman 84. Um, but I know, I mean, other than that, great movie. Really, no complaints with this movie like whatsoever. I don't have really a single thing to say about it. That's negative. Um, I mean, I don't remember how much of Gal Gadot's backstory we got in this movie. I think we could have maybe gotten a little bit more of her backstory in this movie, and I think that's where it should have belonged. Like instead of getting it in Wonder Woman 1984, we should have gotten it in the first Wonder Woman, because they could have focused on different things in the second movie, which would have made it maybe a little bit better. But no, I mean, solid film. It's definitely, if we had to do our own like personal rankings of like DC projects, it's definitely in my top five, even top three. And yeah, it's definitely a good movie to close out on, for for the list that we have here.
well, we still have one more project.
Well, yeah, I know, but I'm saying
It's
for
the last movie. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, because the last project is actually not a movie; it's a TV series. So for the last movie on the list, it's a pretty good film to end on.
Yeah. Also, if you guys are wondering, this list is just the DC universe. It's not like projects like Joker and stuff like that.
Right.
That's why
So
we
I
got
guess it's
that.
not considered like because I like we talked about it before. It was like the DC universe and then the DCEU universe. So there's like an expanded universe which would have
Yeah,
encompassed like the Joker and the Batman and everything. But this is just solely the DC universe. So I mean, we could probably do a whole another episode on the extended universe. But that one was a little bit longer because it had like a lot more projects on it and stuff like that. So
yeah. But closing out our list with our one and only TV show that is on here, we have Peacemaker, which is 1% above Wonder Woman, but it's not certified fresh. It is a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, with I believe the second highest audience score coming in at 89%.
that's actually
This
pretty interesting how it's 94%, but it's not certified fresh.
Yeah, I guess because in terms of like critical things, it's not all around
Mhm.
a great show, I guess you could say. But this is more of a recent show. This came out shortly after Suicide Squad in 2022, and it's still going on. I believe they are working on a second season. It stars the likes of John Cena, Daniel Brooks, Freddie Stroma, and it was also produced by James Gunn and other people as well. So again, anything produced by James Gunn, we know is going to be an instant hit. Um, just his two things are here in the top three, so that should tell you something. Um, what's it called? Again, I haven't seen this show. I can't give my opinion on it. I've heard a lot of great things though. Again, I love Peacemaker's character in the Suicide Squad, so I feel like a show with him is, equally as great. It looks hilarious. Of course, it's probably got, um, rated R action and, comedy like that, which is always fun to see. I heard the villain is not bad, and I don't think it. Again, I can't really give an opinion, so I don't know if I will put it up here. But from what I know about the character, from what I've seen and heard, it looks like a fun time, and any sort of fun time like that probably does belong towards the top of the list. I look forward to seeing it. That's on my watch list as many other things are. But overall, for it being the only show being at the top is definitely very interesting. But it's also very interesting that it's the top one, but it's not certified fresh. But it is, quite high. But other than that, I really got nothing else to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I also haven't seen it. At the end of the Suicide Squad, I personally was not a fan of Peacemaker. Since ever since
Yeah.
what he did to another beloved character of ours, kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. And next thing you know, he's getting a show, but it seems like the show redeems him in some qualities. And I've seen a couple of good clips and heard a lot of good things. I know there's like a famous scene like in the very last episode where like he's walking off and like the Justice League arrives. And he's like, "It took you guys fucking long enough." So there's definitely a lot of comedic value there. And like you said, probably definitely some rated R action. Um, so yeah, I mean, again, I am surprised that it is at the top of the list, considering that the rest of them were TV shows. Um, I mean, I'm sorry, since the rest of them were movies. I guess when you look at the specific DC universe, I guess this is the first show that is specifically the DC universe, which makes sense because I don't think characters like Peacemaker and stuff were considered like expanded universe. Those might have been characters that they created. Um, so yeah, but otherwise that pretty much rounds out our list. So unfortunately, I mean, I guess if we had to kind of like look at this list as a whole, unfortunately, because it was the DC universe and there was only 14 projects, I feel like 8 of them were certified rotten. So compared to Marvel, DC definitely does not have their stuff together when it comes to movies. Unfortunately, they really cannot put out consistent stuff until recently. I mean, because like you said, the Suicide Squad was 2021, Peacemaker was 2022. So really 2021 was probably like the best year. Or 2021, 2022 was probably the best years of DC just because, again, like, I don't know. It looks like maybe like the late teens, to the present day are kind of like mixed, because I mean you have some great projects,
Yeah.
like other projects that were like, whatever. Um, but hopefully the future is looking bright with James Gunn taking the helm of the DC universe now. And I mean, I don't know. He's probably taking charge after these 3 movies come out. So I'm sure after the Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman, like any other projects that come out after that will be done by James Gunn, right? Is that how it's working?
Yeah, so basically the Flash is like the one that resets everything, and then from Blue Beetle on, it's pretty much James Gunn. I mean, those aren't James Gunn's projects like Aquaman and Blue Beetle and the Flash. Those technically aren't his projects. But after
So
the
does
Flash, it's
Aquaman
gonna
take
be a new.
place? Does the Aquaman movie take place like before the rewinds or like before the Flash movie?
It still is starring Ben Affleck, so I'm not necessarily sure. I think it's supposed to take place around the same time as when the Flash is taking place. I feel like Blue Beetle is the only thing that is coming out after like that timeline. Again, I we'll probably see after the Flash, but the next 3 movies on this list that aren't rated are very promising. Again, another Aquaman film. I know there's controversy regarding the Flash and Aquaman, but regardless, I think I have hope for those 2 movies. Same with Blue Beetle. I feel like Blue Beetle is going to be
I have
such a
I have
fresh look.
exceptionally high hopes for Blue Beetle. Ever since that trailer dropped, I think it's going to be a great film, to be honest.
Me too. Like I really, a lot of people probably don't think of Blue Beetle as a popular character. I really only know him from games and stuff like that. But it looks funny. It looks like a fresh new thing that again DC is gonna need. I think the Flash is gonna. I think the Flash, regardless its controversies, it's gonna be probably one of the best DC movies out there.
Yeah.
Hopefully, because if it's
I
a
think I
flop,
think it's one
then
of those scenarios where, unfortunately, people do not like the actor, obviously because of the controversy around him. So they probably wish that it was somebody else. But you know what? If his final movie as the Flash can end on a really high note, then that leaves a good footing, I guess you could
yeah,
say, for future projects regarding the Flash. I mean, if they could end the Flash story, on a good note, then it opens the doors for future opportunities and stuff like that. Because obviously, the Flash has had a somewhat successful time in the DC universe. I mean, obviously, the Flash TV show is very well loved and everything. And the guy who plays Barry Allen in that is great. And then obviously, at first, before the controversy came out, the guy who plays him in the movies is pretty good. He does a good job as Barry Allen. But I do have high hopes for this movie. So, like I said, hopefully these next three movies are pretty well received, and DC could launch itself, into a brighter future. And I do agree with what you said in the beginning of our episode when you said that DC is eventually going to overtake Marvel. I totally agree. I mean, I think Guardians of the Galaxy is probably going to be the best movie project that they put out for a while. Um, Unfortunately, I don't think it's to do enough to save Marvel because I think some of the projects that are coming out from Marvel are kind of questionable. So I think they're going to lose steam. So this is kind of like DC's chance to overtake them and stuff like that. But
going to be honest, and I'm coming out swinging with this because again, every single critic or whatever, or there's been at least just said since Endgame that this Marvel like Thor: Love and Thunder, Ant Man, blah blah blah, best Marvel movie since Endgame. Guardians, it's the best. Like I hold best Marvel movie since Endgame. Like this
yeah,
was,
I believe it.
I feel like this is what Marvel should always be. And I feel like you see the care of, the characters with the direct. Like, I feel like, see what happens when you don't just push crap out. Like, again, you'll see it in the film. And again, I love
Right.
all the Guardians films. So obviously it's a little different. But that's why I have so much faith in DC. And again, it's not just James Gunn. It's somebody else as well. I forget his name though. I'm sorry. But I feel like again, every superhero movie he's made has been banger after banger, and I feel like he's one of those guys that takes weird characters and does a lot of good things with them, and he's doing that with DC. Again, there's a character called Booster Gold. He's basically like Iron Man, but like his he don't have a sad backstory. His family's not dead. He's just an asshole, but he's got technology. Something like that is like interesting that he's even doing something like that. And again, he wants to do Batman and Robin, Superman Legacy, a
Yeah.
bunch of other things as well. So again, with these next couple of DC projects, they all look very promising, and I think we're gonna see a shift in I think Marvel is going to start to go there and DC is going to start to go there again until they can catch up with each other and, be really same amount of projects or whatever. Probably Marvel will always have the cake on that. But I think, DC is stepping in the right direction and Marvel was dumb firing James Gunn when they initially did because they fired him. He's like, Suicide Squad. And I was like, oh, that's a good movie. Come back. And then he made Guardians and he's like, peace. I'm being the head of DC now with so and so.
Yeah.
So a
Well, I
lot to
mean,
look
we're
forward to.
definitely gonna have a lot to talk about next week because our episode next week is probably gonna be on Guardians of the Galaxy because I do plan on seeing it this week. So I mean, our episode is definitely
Bring
gonna be
tissues.
our our episode is definitely gonna be on Guardians. So we'll have a lot to say there, and so just be on the lookout for that one. But that's pretty much it, guys. So thank you for coming out to our episode today, where we do another Rotten Tomatoes versus DC list. And overall, I would like to think that Marvel. I'm sorry, Rotten Tomatoes actually got this list pretty accurately. I think besides Man of Steel, that was really the only issue. I think all the rankings were pretty spot on. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't the case. I wish more of the movies were popular, but that's just the amount of quality that we've gotten over like the last decade when it came to projects. So thank you for coming out to our episode today. I apologize if this is going to be a 3-part episode on YouTube. I'm going to try my best to like just condense this into like one giant episode. But if not, it will be a nice 3-part episode for you guys to, enjoy at your leisure. It is good to have my brother back in action this week. I felt a little awkward recording by myself last week, but it is nice to see his face and have somewhere to look when I'm recording.
Yeah.
So good to be back. Expect some banger episodes in the future. I feel like the whole rest of the month, honestly, will probably be like surrounding Guardians because I'm sure you'll have plenty of ideas to do for Guardians episodes and stuff like that. But I could definitely say with certainty that next week's episode is going to cover Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So that should be exciting. I can't wait to talk about it with you and, just get right into it. Before we close out the episode, why don't you remind our wonderful viewers, where they can find us and, what to look forward to.
All right. Once again, everyone, thank you for coming out and listening. Or if this is your first time, thank you for giving us a shot and seeing if you like it, and hopefully you come back. Or even if you don't, that's always cool. We just like people to interact with us and let us know what you think. Again, like I always say, please interact on any of our socials. No matter how big or small this podcast gets, we want to interact with you guys and get some ideas from you, because again, there is every ideas we try are similar to other podcasts, or even if they're our own ideas. It's just always nice to have interaction with people, and we hope to always get there and grow bigger and bigger every day. And I think we're succeeding. But again, once again, we are a Two Sons podcast. That's Sons with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. Once again, we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Um, Hopefully, again, I'm still probably after I graduate, I'll set it up. In the process of setting up a film blog, and hopefully, once I leave the theaters and I can actually just go as a moviegoer, I can, maybe set up my own IMBD, and review movies that way, and talk about it on this podcast. But we both love you guys. We appreciate you coming out every week, or even if we don't get to do it every week, waiting and still coming back and listening. And from our viewers all over the world, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. And we continue to hopefully grow, further and further every day. But once again, there's going to be a lot of Guardians content coming, most likely, because there's just so much stuff to talk about there now, and I can't wait for my brother to see it so we can talk about it. But thank you guys, for coming out and listening. Have a great evening, great morning, great night, whatever time you're listening is. Just have a great, great, great. And I'll let my brother close out the episode.
Yes, sir. So once again, thank you everybody for coming out today. It's good to be back. Good to have us back in action. Like my brother said, prepare for the rest of the month to, revolve around Marvel and Guardians, which will be a lot of fun to talk about. Everybody loves, that lovable group of characters. So it'll be fun to talk about, and we'll have some good conversations there. But prepare for the our podcast to come out on Spotify and podcast streaming platforms in the morning, and then I will upload these YouTube videos later tonight. So you can just watch at your leisure, whenever you want. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like my brother said, have a good day, good afternoon, good evening. May the force be with you, and you all have a good one.
See you later, guys.